In this tutorial, I just wanted to point out a few details about that water animation that I just posted yesterday with water coming down through this channel like this. Now this is the view after you have run the simulation, and in fact, since this is the flow object, it had started way up here. If I'll get out of edit mode here, and I've right click that, and if I go into the physics button over here, you'll notice a couple things. One, in order to make it work, well, one of them, in fact, you haven't even seen the final rendering. This was set at 225 to make it work. And sometimes even when you set at these high resolutions and you're looking at it with Alt A, it doesn't look quite right, but the final rendering is actually fine. But you can change this viewport display from preview to geometry, and then you can see there's the object. I'll put it in wireframe mode. So there's my domain object in here. Now notice if you see the size of my domain object, it's just a cube that's just 2 by 2 by 2. It's not very big at all, right? So in order to make the scene work, it kind of goes against convention sometimes, because here's the whole gigantic scene inside this little itty bitty cube. So the point of the lesson is that you want to keep your simulations really small as possible. So I basically had a large surface to begin with, and then I scaled it down. And then look at this house even. Here, look at the the size of that chimney. I usually represent units as meters, though I don't have it set that way. But if I looked at that, it'd be like 0.07 meters. It'd be a really tiny chimney. Well, it is in this scene. So I basically brought the house in from another scene that was a normal size scale, and then I had to scale it way down to fit inside the scene in order to make it work. Alright, so let's see, where was this domain object? Let me see. Alright, so this was my obstacle in the scene. And the one thing to pay attention to when you create these obstacles is that I had to apply a subdivision surface to this here in order to make it work, because otherwise what will happen is the water leaks through on the bottom. Different than just doing regular subdivide. You can just go over here when you have your scene selected, or your object selected like that, and you go into the modifier, and then you come up here and you grab a subdivision surface, and then I change the render subdivisions up here a couple times, and then I applied it. You can't be in edit mode when you apply it. Alright, so, and that really helps to help keep the water within the channel as it was coming down through the valley like this. Alright, so there's little details, and let me see if I can get back to there's my domain cube. I can't get the domain cube from the outside. There it is. Alright, no, that's the obstacle. I want to get my cube. There's my cube. Alright, so, and the other thing you want to make sure you match up is the time. Notice my time frame is 8 seconds. That's the total duration that the simulation wants to take place. And you need to match that. So that's 8 seconds. And then you look inside the render tab, and it currently is set at, where is it here? 30 frames per second, though your system by default comes up at 24 frames per second like this, and I changed it to 30. But if it was set at 24 frames per second, then what you want to do, you want to match your 24. You want to take your 8 seconds for the simulation, and you want to multiply it by 24, so that'd be 8 times 24, that'd be 160, and 30 would be 192 frames. So then your simulation wants to be 192 frames in length. Alright, so matching those up is really important if you want the simulation to work as you expected. And without a doubt, cranking this up is really, really important. You need to have at least, I'd say, at about 125 at a minimum for any reasonable simulation to take effect without it breaking through from the top to the bottom. But up at about 225, which you can see takes a gigabyte of memory just for this simulation itself. Alright, but that really starts making the water look pretty realistic. And I think the animation I posted had a resolution of 150 maybe only. But this is quite a bit of memory to keep in mind, because that's 1 gigabyte for the simulation itself, and that doesn't, and I'm running a Windows operating system, and I believe, if I recall, that a process space is limited to 2 gigabytes total. So that'd be you know, you'd have to account for the space that Blender takes and then the memory inside of it. So yeah, that's kind of about your upper limit. All right, well, those are just little details to maybe help you bring your simulation to life, because this can be a tricky little subject, but when you finally get all the pieces together, oh, it's nice, if you don't mind waiting. All right, well, that's it for this lesson, and I'll see you in the next lesson.